now we take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, along with the nation's service chiefs, held a crucial meeting in Abuja to review the country's security situation. The gathering focused on ongoing operations against terrorism, banditry, and other emerging threats across different regions. Officials discussed ways to strengthen intelligence sharing, improve coordination among security agencies, and ensure safer communities for citizens. The NSA emphasized the government's resolve to sustain progress in restoring peace and stability nationwide. This meeting comes from U.S. President Donald Trump doubled down on his claim that Christians are being killed in very large numbers and hinted at military intervention, noting that airstrikes, as well as having U.S. military boots on the ground in Nigeria, were opinions that were being considered.
Categorically clear here, there are no Christians being persecuted in Nigeria. Well, we are facing insecurity, especially terrorism, and it's something that's been affecting Nigeria for quite some time now. But as a group, talking about security heads, we've been doing our very best to checkmate this act of terrorism within the space of Nigeria. And you will recall recently, that's just last week, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, recalibrated the security architecture by bringing on board officers of proven integrity who are seasoned in asymmetric warfare to add impetus to our operations. I want to assure Nigerians going forward that we're going to add more to what we're doing, add more impetus to our operations, and ensure that we checkmate this act of terrorism within Nigeria. And you know very well that terrorism is a global issue, it's a global problem. There are several countries that are challenged in that respect. And it calls for collective effort. So if we have countries out there who are ready to support Nigeria, we are ready to have them on board to help us checkmate the act of terrorism within the space of Nigeria. So we welcome everybody to support it. That's my message. Thank you.
Still on this story, the Nigerian stock market lost 246 billion naira yesterday as investors traded cautiously following U.S. President Donald Trump's designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern over alleged widespread killings of Christians, rising religious intolerance, and his further threat of military action if the government fails to curb the violence. Following the development, financial analysts have called for calm, stressing that the fundamentals of the Nigerian economy remain strong. At the stock market, investors' profit-taking in fundamental stocks dragged the market capitalization to 97.583 trillion naira at the close of trading activities, a 0.25% or 246 billion naira decline from 97.829 trillion naira. The stock market opened for trading this week. Consequently, the Nigerian Exchange Limited All-Share Index closed for trading at 153,739.11 basis points, a 0.25% or 387.35 basis points decline from the 154,126.46 basis points the stock market closed for trading last week. Capital market analysts attributed the downward movement in the Nigerian stock market to speculative trading by investors. Now, moving on to the health sector, the federal government has appealed to striking resident doctors to return to work and to allow both parties to use the ongoing negotiations to resolve all outstanding issues holistically and sustainably. It stated that the ministry was setting up a task force to monitor service delivery at various federal government-owned health facilities nationwide to ensure that the strike does not cause major disruptions. Addressing journalists in Abuja yesterday, the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Isiaq Adekunle Salako, said the government has substantially addressed most of the items contained in the 19-point demand by the resident doctors. on the payment of the arrears of salary increment. The minister said the federal government has paid 66% of the total arrears and was processing the remaining arrears of about 33% to be paid within the next 72 hours. And now to elections. Chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Joash Amupiton, SAN, has said the Anambra state governorship election scheduled for November 8 will be his first major test in office, and he is ready to deliver a credible exercise. Amupiton gave the assurance yesterday during a peace accord signing ceremony for all the 16 political parties in the contest, their candidates and state chairmen. Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, who was represented at the signing ceremony by Deputy Inspector General of Police, Benjamin Okolo, assured the people that the police would ensure maximum security during the election. Egbetokun warned separatist groups like Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, and Eastern Security Network, ESN, saying any attempt to disrupt the election will be resisted. Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo, who spoke on behalf of the governorship candidates, assured that the parties and their candidates would adhere to the peace accord. Soludo said Anambra had a history of fighting dirty during elections, but the candidates would always meet at the weekend to wine and dine together. All right, Rufai, Dr. Bat, isn't that the story of Nigerian elections? The people fight and sometimes die in the process, while those whom they're fighting for know how to settle at the back and, make amends when interests align. But beyond this, of course, the big topic this morning is still the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by the United States of America and the threat of military intervention, if possible, by President Donald Trump, as well as reactions coming from that. Your take on these stories?
Okay, so a couple of things. There's been some updates on that story. And yesterday, I took out time to go watch it myself because I don't like to talk without empirical facts. When Trump was asked, is there a possibility of boots on the ground? He was in affirmative as regards that. But I don't think, with the zeitgeist in America and what America has suffered over the years, America want to keep boots on the ground again. So it might just be Trump doing his showboating. But what are the facts and the matters on ground? All of a sudden, it's now that the National Security Advisor knows that they will meet the service chiefs to react. You see the things we keep saying about this country. When we talk, now, Rufai is stupid. He doesn't like us. He is this, he is that. So if Trump did not talk, National Security Advisor and the top military brass would not meet to say, let's find a lasting solution to this matter. You see, another part of this conversation that I'm scared about is the fact that we have now turned it into a you versus me thing, rather than all of us coming together to condemn the general killings in the country. So it's not a popularity contest. Which religion is being killed more? Christians or Muslims? No! Be it Christian, be it Muslim, be it Shokmono, be it Babalawo, be it Ifa, be it Oro. We are all Nigerians. The question is, should Nigerians be killed? I think Nigerians, let's collectively focus on that. How can we stop the killing through kidnapping? You have been in the vanguard of many of these incidents. That's why I'm talking with a place of pain. I hear people call me and they say, Rufai, somebody has just been kidnapped. I remember I was called upon when somebody, I think one of the Afenifere people around Ondo State, when he was kidnapped then. And we kept on putting that matter until he was released. It could happen to any of us. How can we stop that? That's all I'm concerned about. And the Nigerian Security Architecture is saying, if we want to get foreign help, we can get foreign help as regards this. You see, these are part of the things we are saying. With the resources given, is it that we cannot solve this insecurity problem? Because you see, this insecurity has turned into propaganda. And another area Nigerians are not even looking at is what I call the war economy. The reason why all of this has persisted, and there's a war economy, a lot of people are benefiting from all of this. And until we stop the cycle of people benefiting from the killings and this insecurity in this country will not move forward. So what are we talking about? Solutions. Now, okay, yes, the security chiefs are amenable if they want to come and help. We should remember help has consequences. So America is not a charity. Oh. Even the aid they give you, they don't give you for free. Oh. They give you for influence. Oh. And I'm talking about this in national sovereignty now. I was calculating the amount America collected for Kuwait from fighting the Gulf War for them. It's over 40 billion. As of 1990, it was 16 billion. Oh. So what are you ready to give them in return? There's also a resource conversation. Be careful. Let's be careful. So are we saying that with all the monies these people are collecting, we'll not be able to stop insecurity? I'm talking about the military. So what is the problem they are facing in stopping this insecurity? At some point, we had Super Tucano, which the Buhari government there called the game changer. We bought the Super Tucano, Kotukano. Because despite the Super Tucano, yes, it's made some strides, but we are not seeing the real impact. We are not seeing a massive drop. We keep saying, okay, we've killed bandits. We are sending some of them to court and all of that, but we are still seeing killings. All I want, like I've always said, is for killings to end. As regards the doctor strike, federal government, please go and listen to doctors. If the doctors are saying this, how many billion are you putting down?
48 billion. They said is the total.
Is the total amount, and you're putting in how many billion?
The doctor says they say it's 41, but the doctor says 48.
48 billion. How much is government putting down? 19 and how many billion? 11 point something. It's not going to cut it. These doctors have been crying for a while. Meet all of their demands once and for all. We are having ASU. We are having doctors. Now, because of this Trump announcement, the bond market has gone down again. In all of this, I feel for President Tinubu, but leadership also needs to be strong. And that's why we keep telling President Tinubu, so you can see how it is now. When you condemn Jonathan that time, and people went to report him in America, so you can see that this leadership thing is not easy. And I pray for President Tinubu this morning that God will give you the strength to be able to navigate this muddy water. But we must be able to stop the killing and stop the level of insecurity that is happening in the country, pure and simple. But let us introspect.
All right.
Okay, for record purposes, service chiefs in Nigeria have always met. There's something called the National Security Council, which is usually a closed-door meeting at which the Nigerian president, confers with his security chiefs. So the meeting this time around, this is not like, it's because of Donald Trump that they are meeting. The security chiefs have a duty to look again and again into security matters. President Tinubu has met with them. In the face of the allegation by President Trump, it's just normal, procedural, that the security chiefs will meet. Now, I think that at that meeting, the big takeaway is that they struck a conciliatory tone. President Trump has repeated the offensive by saying that he will not hesitate to put boots on the ground in Nigeria because we have to save Christians. They are killing Christians in Nigeria. Now, the interpretation of that is different. Governor Soludo of Anambra State says, no, the matter is not that simplistic. It's far more complex. After all, in southeast Nigeria, the people who are killing people, kidnapping people, they are Christians, killing Christians. Okay? It's not as if it's Islam versus Christianity in Nigeria. Well, that's one perspective. Governor Adeleke of Osun State says, what we need is diplomatic engagement. And at this time calls for unity. Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State also says this is not the time for partisanship, it's a time for unity. The founder of the NMPP, the New Nigeria People's Party, Dr. Martin Anebonam, says, look, politicians should refrain from playing politics because this is about the interests of all Nigerians. This is about our country. So these are some of the perspectives that are on the table. So National Security Advisor and the service chiefs coming together to say, well, we recognize that there are challenges. If anybody is going to help us, the person is welcome. After all, terrorism, banditry, these are global issues. these are cross-border issues. These are issues for international law. But Nigeria is a sovereign country. We are not a colony that, the United States can dictate to. But cooperation is what can win the war, to the best of my knowledge. That in itself, there's nothing problematic about that because, I've also read another account where Nigerians have been told to be very calm. For example, with regard to politicians, the ADC is saying since Tinubu took power, 15,000 Christians have been killed. How did they arrive at that figure? Even President Trump mentioned 3,100. And he says it's, the highest in the world. But ADC, as a political party, is saying 15,000. How did they get that? So those who are calling for unity, who are calling for cooperation, who are calling for dialogue, I think they are in order. Yesterday, we hosted the chieftains, the Board of Trustees, members, leaders of the Arewa Consultative Forum, that is very soon this month, going to celebrate its 25th anniversary. And the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Arewa Consultative Forum says, look, the solution will come from within. And what was he recommending? A judicial commission of inquiry, where Nigerians on both sides of the aisle, those who feel aggrieved can table their problems, those who think that it's a different perspective that they have can come together. But the sum of it is that Nigerians are the ones to solve their problem. The direction of the solution is in good governance, making this environment safe for everyone, whether it is separatist politics in the southeast and kidnapping in the south and southeast, or indigenous settler politics in the north central, or banditry in the northwest, or terrorism in the northeast. The reminder here is that this is a wake-up call for Nigeria, that the Nigerian government has to do a lot more. The Tinubu government says we have been trying. Yes, but they have to do a lot more. And I align myself with those who are saying, look, there should be cooperation. It's not even just the security chiefs alone that should speak. Yesterday, I was talking about the need to have adults in the room. In my back page column in this day newspaper this morning, I repeated the point that there are people in this country who should all come together. Call them President Olusegun Obasanjo, President Jonathan, Chief Emeka Anyanku, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Ambassador Jokeshi, Ambassador Yahaya Kwande, all these people, the Association of Retired Diplomats of Nigeria, I think they call that ACAN. Let them all come together, and then we put us together to see how this problem can be solved. After all, Chad, we does not even have a land border with Nigeria. And I'm going to the consequences and implications, which are already becoming evident. It's just like if you have to go to Chad by land, you have to go through northern Cameroon. President Idris Deby Itno, Mahamat Idris Deby Itno, says he has immediately ordered that the border with Nigeria should be closed. So if Chad closes the border with us, Niger follows suit. Niger has even a longer stretch. Cameroon closes the northern border. The consequences will be very dire. And that is why I think good reason should prevail. Now look at the Naira. The Naira has depreciated by 1.2% because people are now panicking because of what Trump said. They are probably stocking up dollars, which is a safe haven kind of asset. The bonds, long-term bonds yields that will mature in 2047 lost 0.6% yesterday. Or is it Monday? Yesterday was Monday, yes. Monday. In the emerging markets. But we are hoping that CFG Advisory, which is led by Tilewa Adebayo, is probably right when he says it's a blip. Because by the end of market yesterday, there was some kind of adjustment. And then, of course, some analysts have said the fundamental momentum that has been created by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's, reform is not likely to be derailed by this particular. by this particular development. So that's why good reason is very important. As for Professor Joash Amukwiton, he's right to say the election on Saturday in Anambra will be his first major test, and that he will deliver credible elections. That's what we've been asking for. Credible, free, and fair elections. What this means in simple terms, the population of registered voters in Anambra State is not a lot, maybe a little over 1 million or thereabouts. So it's not as if it's taking its first test by conducting election in the whole of Nigeria. There are basic logistics that they need to worry about. One, materials should arrive very early in all the locations. One, there's to be transparency in the conduct of the elections in Anambra. We don't want a Tanzanian situation where Samia Suluhu Hassan has organized a scam election, and she has been sworn in yesterday for a second term as president of that country. We want the security agencies to also behave themselves, what they call the concentric circles. There should be no ballot box snatching, there should be no ballot stuffing, there should be no vote buying, there should be no vote selling, because the law frowns upon that. And INEC should collaborate with the security agencies to ensure that nobody derails that election. Despite all the reports we've been having from Anambra about people complaining, it shall be well with Anambra, and we wish Indy Anambra well on Saturday. As for resident doctors, government is now saying, hey, we will pay their arrears. No, doctors are not well treated, whether they are resident doctors or other doctors. University teachers and polytechnic teachers, the academia generally, are not well treated. It's only when people say they are going on strike, and Femi Falana goes on television to defend the rights of workers. That's when government wakes up and says, oh, let us have a meeting. We will pay the arrears. Government needs to do a lot more. And under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we should not be having these patterns that we survived under General Muhammadu Buhari.
Absolutely. Okay, let me start from there. And I've been making an advocacy for not just the health sector, but for the education sector as well, critical sectors, if we must have a thriving economy and nation. And now, like Dr. Bat, you mentioned, we didn't have to get to this point, and that's why they kept sounding the alarm that they would be going on strike on the 1st of November. Now we hear stories around the fact that the Ministry of Finance has met with the resident doctors, the Ministry of Labour and Employment have met with the resident doctors, an interim report has been developed, they are looking at it, they want to release tranches of money. The president has given a directive that they must be able to meet the demands of these doctors. I wish this was done long before the strike action took place, so that we don't have to now start asking for a call, or the impact that it has had on patients who have had to be discharged without being treated would not have happened. I must say, though, that this administration has been quite responsive to the demands of these sectors. Recall that the ASU strike was called off as they showed good faith, or the government showed good faith, and already money had been released towards paying the arrears of these lecturers. In the same vein, the doctors have admitted that some monies have been released, but it's not yet enough. It's also important to highlight the fact that this is an inherited problem. It didn't start under this administration. So what this administration is doing is to try and clean up the mess of previous administrations and still be able to, address the concerns of in their current administration. I believe moving forward, looking at the 19-point agenda, it's nothing selfish. It's the basic things that should happen for the health sector: welfare, better welfare of doctors, increased pay, payment of hazard allowance since COVID-19 is what they're still fighting for in 2025. Better resources and upgrade of health facilities. These are some of the asks of these doctors. Not very different from what the teachers or the lecturers themselves have asked for. So in saying that, it is that the government can be proactive. We don't have to embark on strikes to get attention on what ought to have been done or what should be statutory, at the very least, for critical sectors in the nation. Talking about the Anambra elections, it's important to note that the IG of police has spoken very tough against anyone who would want to disrupt. But I think very important would be that it mustn't be selective justice. So we don't want to see incidents where some bigwigs or some prominent people are seen to flout electoral laws or promote violence, and we look away and we arrest the small fries, in quote, the man on the street who is the very last point on the chain of the ladder. We hope that it will not be one party being favored against the other. We'll be watching, and as Professor Mukpito has said, this is an opportunity for him to demonstrate to Nigerians that they can have confidence again in the electoral process organized by INEC. Now, let's go to the main meat of today's stories, which has been trending, of course, making headlines since the weekend. And that is Nigeria's response to America on designating it as a country of particular concern. A number of stakeholders have come out to speak. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to host the leadership of the Arewa Consultative Forum. And they were also, speaking about the importance of speaking with one voice and the fact that they have also experienced, violence, killing, extremism, terrorists, and a call to the government to take action and work. And also, I think very important that was said yesterday was that, social-cultural groups like themselves must come up together and speak, in one voice, in support of the people, devoid of partisanship, devoid of, ethnicity, but just speak for the good of the nation, Nigeria first, before other parts. But I think very importantly, since the news has broken, is that we're making progress. There's more action. Nigerians are now seeing a bit more effort and action, a lot more effort and action from security operatives. But I think some of the few things that I'll mention this morning is the issue of funding. Who are the people funding these terrorists? Recall that some years ago, a list was released. I don't know what's happened to that now. But if you're going to decisively deal with terrorism, you must cut off the funding of these terrorists. We've heard a number of times. I remember the Chief of Defense Staff, the previous Chief of Defense Staff, had said during an interview that when they arrested or apprehended these criminals, they would find foreign currencies on them. Who are the people funding these terrorist organizations such that they've been able to keep up the oxygen for 15 years? Sometimes they have even more sophisticated weapons than our own Nigerian troops. We've had our Nigerian troops pay the ultimate price because they were not equipped to the extent of the terrorists. So who are the people funding? And would this administration be courageous enough to actually deal with the people who are funding? If we don't cut off the supply, we'll continue to just deal with the surface and not the real issues. Then I think I must bring up the issue of the non-kinetic approach to this. Yes, this was a language that was bandied around, especially in recent months. But I think it's very important we deal with the root issues. It is now time to bring together religious and ethnic leaders, cultural leaders in those communities, and find out how to engage them properly, because many of these bandits and terrorists are known by the locals. In fact, some of them now defer to them for protection against insecurity, because they feel that their own people, their own government has failed them. Who are these people? Where are they hiding amongst the communities? Who are the people shielding them? It is now important for them to engage them. Then fix the root causes. We've often talked about poverty being a reason why terrorism or being adopted into the system is attractive. If you don't provide infrastructure for the Northeast, for the North, we will continue to have this problem. The North currently still has the largest number of out-of-school children. If we don't educate the people, then we'll continue to deal with indoctrinations based on who is speaking into their ears. If we're talking about dealing with this incessant insecurity, we must deal holistically with the problems. Nigerian government must listen to the people. I've said it again and again, we can no longer bury our heads in the sand or pay lip service to some of the cries of the people in the Middle Belt, in Plateau, in Plateau, in Benue State. We've been talking about the fact that the farmers have not been able to go back to their farms. And so it is now time to possibly have, a committee. I think it was the Judicial Commission of Inquiry that was suggested by the ACF yesterday, that they should institute one. Get people to the table, listen to the concerns, and actually respond to the concerns, and not just pay lip service or try to, beautify the situation or, to make it better, or spin the narrative in a way that does not favor the Nigerian people. I think finally, in terms of the elections, going back to the elections, letting the peace accord actually make sense. Every election cycle, we have peace accords being signed. Despite that, we still see the rhetorics. We still see the violence happening in our elections. I believe that as Professor Soludo has spoken, he would also lead the charge alongside the other candidates in this election. A number of things to break down. As we continue today on today's show, we'll continue to link up even with Washington as to, number one, the responses, the implications, and what the Nigerian government must do now to ensure that the best response to Washington and the United States of America is action, to fix the problem. That is the best response to what America has thrown at us as a country.